Hey everyone, good evening. Tonight's guest had everything and lost it all. How is she coming back bigger and better? How has the mistakes of her life helped her on spiritual path? We're going to talk about that and much, much more tonight. So in tonight's Reawaken You, I had thought about something. Thank you. A little late on the sound effect. Everyone, I apologize. I'm going on my honeymoon tomorrow, so I'm Skyping in from my home office. I upload all the interviews that I do to YouTube. And this past yesterday, and I'm not going to talk about the government shutdown, we have enough talking about that, someone had posted on my most popular video, and I have a couple thoughts on this. First of all, they were upset that I had recommended ending relationships that weren't healthy. So I still stand by that. If you are not in a healthy relationship, I say walk away, whether it's personal or professional. And the truth of the matter is, when you love yourself and when you respect yourself, you're not going to want to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't respect you and love you back and who doesn't support you 110%. And from a simple law of attraction physics point of view, those people won't be in your life anymore. Now, you can change relationships and you can set boundaries and say, hey, you know what? You need to treat me better. I'm not going to have you in your life. And I stand by that. And what the other interesting thing about this comment was what they focused on. It was a interview with Peter Walsh, who's a design expert and a professional organizer, talks about clutter in your life and kind of what's going on the inside is reflected on the outside. And this is a 60-minute interview, and what this person chose to focus on was one comment that I made. And so I want to encourage you to look at your life. Are you focusing on that one comment, or are you missing all the wonderful hints out there, all the wonderful advice that's going on in your life? And finally, you know, they weren't happy with what I said, and that's okay. You don't have to agree with everything I say, but they commented again saying I had to be careful about my audience and what I said because people might do something as a result of something I said. And while I was flattered on one hand, thinking, gosh, I'm not that big, where does personal responsibility come into play of all that? If it's so easy to say, well, I saw Julie Caraccio say something and I did it, so it's all her fault. When you do that, that also keeps you in being a victim. So this week, I want you to examine situations in your life where you're not taking responsibility, where you're being a victim. Do that because you're here to reawaken your brilliance, and we want you to do that. So again, just take this week and examine and move forward. All right, I'm excited to tell you about tonight's guest. Jamie McCall is a decorated former Navy officer who served as flag speechwriter to an admiral, editor-in-chief of Navy Recruiter Magazine and Protocol, and public affairs officer for several national and international events. She served as a linguist and was accepted to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey just prior to her resignation. She served 2 tours in Puerto Rico as Administrative and Community Relations Officer, as well as Operation Officer of a military entrance processing station for the islands. Jamie relocated to Los Angeles to pursue her career in the entertainment industry and has been featured on several popular network television shows and starred in several independent films. She's been a member of the Screen Actors Guild since 2007. Jamie is a spokesmodel, advocate, and public speaker, very involved with the recovery and veterans communities. She's been a guest commentator on HuffPost Live and contributing editor to several e-zines. She currently resides in her hometown of Portland, Oregon. Welcome, Jamie.
Hi, Julie. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited. I want to thank you for your service. We appreciate that. I know it's my husband was in the Army and served his country, and I know that they're still working despite the government shutdown and not getting paid. So we appreciate everything that you've done.
Well, thank you. It was my honor.
Well, let's get started because you have a really great story. So give us a little bit, read your book, and we'll be sure to tell people where they can get that. But what happened? What was going on in your life? And then you lost everything. What was that?
Well, I had a distinguished career as a naval officer. This is something that I had to fight for. I was the first female in my family to accomplish this. I have a long family history of naval service. And I was decorated. I was traveling. I had money. I had, freedom to do what I wanted to do as far as finances goes, and seemingly had everything. And then another family trait kind of took over, and that is alcoholism. Now, I found it interesting that you were talking about choices and taking responsibility in the beginning, because I could blame it all on genes, but I don't. I take full responsibility because even though it is partly genetics, I saw the line and I crossed it. I saw it coming and I kept going. And choices that I made really set me into a downward spiral. And I ended up, after spending about 2 years, really dying. I had some near-death experiences, and I was in emergency rooms, oh gosh, at least once a week. I had to go to the Navy's rehab facility in Virginia. I spent a month in Walter Reed Army Hospital psych ward because I was suicidal. And then finally, at the end of all that, my XO called me into his office and he said, "Look, you're going to die on us, and I just can't have that. I don't know what else to do. So if we'll give you an honorable discharge if you just resign and go take care of this and figure out how to make it, how to survive, how to make this sobriety thing work." So that's what I did. I resigned my commission with my tail between my legs, and I thought my life was over. And it's funny that, literally physically dying wasn't enough for me to make the changes I need to make. It was losing my career and losing that identity that I had, that I had put into being a naval officer, because it's all I ever thought that I ever wanted to do. So
it was really that turning point when they said, "Okay, Jamie, we're going to give you, discharge you," and that was what it took for you to finally recover.
Yeah, because I didn't have anything else. I had no future, no goals, no identity, no relationships. I mean, the Navy and Marine Corps it's like a family, and that was like my family that I lost too. So I went to Idaho and I stayed at my mother and her husband's ranch way out in the middle of nowhere where I couldn't get into any trouble. And I got back into working on the ranch and my hands in the dirt and physical activity and fitness. I got back into dance. I started going back to church, which for me, I've evolved since then, but for me, that was a good starting point to get back into my, my spirituality. And basically the reintegration of mind, body, spirit. I had to get back to basics, and I did it on a ranch in Idaho. And then, once I got stable again, I took a full year, and I worked. I was in the 12-step program, which worked for me. It might not work for everybody, but it did work for me. And I did about one step a month, and I took a year, and I basically restructured myself from the inside out. And then once I got stable enough, I said, "Okay, now what?" I wasn't married. I had no children. I had no ties. And basically the sky was the limit. So I said, there's got to be a reason for this. If I had to start completely from scratch and I could do anything that I want to do, and I've already faced death, and so I have no fear really of anything, what should I do with myself now? So I went to Hollywood.
I lived in Los Angeles for 12 years, or 10 years, and I admire you because it's not an easy city. And, you're an actress, and I felt the pressures, and writing was my passion, and I felt the pressures to be thin and beautiful and get Botox on. And we're going to talk about how you want to revolutionize Hollywood, which is about. But, I can even imagine as an actress, there's more pressure. So when moving there, what allowed you to not slip back into drinking and partying?
Well, I get that question a lot, and I think there's a misconception about the core, the premises for sobriety. If you really want it, and it's a choice that you make, you can stay sober anywhere because it's a daily choice that you're making. So for me, it was easy because I was at the point where, I'm looking around at the people that are still partying, and it just doesn't look appealing to me at all. So it really wasn't anywhere. And I went back to Puerto Rico, which was my last duty station with the Navy, and I just loved the island, but that's where I got sick and nearly died. I went back there too, and I had absolutely no problems. I fell in love with the island all over again in a whole new way, completely sober. So, what's funny, Julie, I have to say this because I don't think I've said this in an interview yet. This is the insanity of the sickness. My biggest fear, it wasn't dying and it wasn't it wasn't even losing my career, and it wasn't having to start over. My biggest fear of all was, will I ever be able to have fun again? I mean,
Really?
yeah, isn't that crazy? I mean, of all the problems that I have, and that was my biggest fear, like, how am I ever going to have fun again if I'm not going to be ever able to ever drink again? And that's insanity, but that's what it does to you. And, I started drinking when I was about 15. It's all I ever knew. So it's like, how am I going to socialize? How am I going to go out and have fun? How am I going to be comfortable around people? How am I going to, you know, I just couldn't even, I couldn't even fathom how that was going to work, or that I'd even meet people that were like me, that were sober. I didn't even think they existed. And looking back, I can laugh at myself because it really is. I was living with blinders on.
Well, see, it's interesting because I all believe well, I'm a huge, and we're going to talk about this, believer in personal responsibility, but I believe we all choose this. And I believe you came here and chose, you know what, I'm going to go, and you might disagree with that, and that's fine. This is just my personal perspective on life, and that you chose that experience because that experience made you Jamie McCall. And by doing that, it's allowing you to have, you say, to have even a bigger and better life. And it allows you that's your spiritual path, and that's how you chose to experience it. And there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong, it just is. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up. I think you're talking about, soul contracts and karma and that kind of thing. And I thought a lot about this. And, this has been something that's plagued my family for decades, generations. And, I lost my biological father to the disease, to drinking and smoking a couple years ago. And other family members continue to suffer. And I feel like part of my purpose was to come here and break that familial cycle and break that chain on our ancestry. So I've been able to do that, and I think it's quite a feat because it's not only my own life that I'm fighting against; it's a long history of all that ancestry that I had to fight against, and break those chains.
What is it you think about you? Because to me, it's amazing that you could go to Montana, go to a ranch, work, and change your life in a year. Because you're from Hollywood. Let's talk about someone like Lindsay Lohan, who's had numerous chances, and I only have compassion for that. I mean, she's an adult and needs to take responsibility, but addiction is a disease. And so if we were to read that she was dead tomorrow, I wouldn't be shocked. What is it about you? Do you think it's because you chose? Say, you know what, I hit rock bottom. I'm choosing to get better. And is someone like that who can go to rehab again and again and again and not better? What do you think the difference is?
Well, my case was a little bit different because I really was at the point where I had no other choice.
Mm-hmm.
It was either get sober or die. So that's the severity of my particular case. But one of the reasons why I wanted to be so raw and brutally honest with this book is because I'm hoping to inspire people to have the courage to make those choices and those changes before they get to that point. It's not, you don't have to hit rock bottom to make your life better and to make those changes. That's the way it happened for me, but I'm hoping that I can inspire someone to choose differently because it's a really painful process. I mean, it's so painful.
I'm with you, and that's why I do this show. My hope is someone watches, connects, says, oh my gosh, she's experienced what I'm going through. If I read that book or if I work with her, that's going to help me. So let's talk about some good stuff now. How has your life changed since hitting rock bottom?
Oh my gosh. Well, Hollywood is quite the enigma. I've had a lot of successes. Am I where I want to be? No, but I'm on track and I'm full speed ahead and I'm making an impact. And with this book and doing these kind of talks and helping people all around the world, I mean, and then getting to do what I love, which is perform. It's a miracle. It's just a miracle I'm even still here. But just the fact that to me, it's just such a blessing to be able to make that impact and have that sense of significance, that I can give back because I was given a second chance. So that's actually how the book came to me. I was 2 years sober And the title actually came to me in what I call like a download from God. It just fell into my head, living the high life without drinking the champagne. And I thought, oh, that's fantastic because it's got so many, it's a double entendre. It's got, different meanings, the ways you can look at it. And I knew then that that was going to be my ministry. That was going to be my message and my way of giving back. And it's just been miraculous. I mean, I get feedback from people literally all over the world, and it's wonderful.
Talk about a little bit about second chances, because I personally believe in giving someone a second chance. You never know what someone's been through or what cross they've had to bear. But what would you say to people who are like, you know what, nah, one chance is enough? What would you say to give it, why someone should give someone else a second chance?
Well, it's an individual choice how many choices and chances you want to give. But I will say this, if you really love someone and believe in them, don't ever give up. I would be dead right now if it weren't for my family and friends that just literally would not, they refused to let me go. I was ready to go. I was suicidal. I was over it. I was like, I can't take this pain anymore. I don't know what else to do. There's no hope for me. But they saw something different for me and they stood by me. And so I give credit, a lot of my credit to surviving and getting into sobriety to my family and friends. Now, having said that, I will say that there are boundaries that need to be set with people that have addictions and alcoholism and addiction, because the nature of the disease, they will run all over you if you let them, just to get the next drink or the next drug or whatever their sickness is. That's just the nature of the beast. That's what it does to you. It puts blinders on so you don't see how you're affecting other people. All you're thinking about is, how am I going to get to the next whatever I need to get to? So it really does, it runs rampant over relationships, and it can become very abusive, and you can become very manipulative. And so the amount of chances you give someone is an individual choice, but there are ways to support people without letting them run all over you. It's called tough love. Mm-hmm. And it varies from person to person, but there are groups out there that can help give you guidance, like Al-Anon and things like that. And I know my mom was involved in that when I was going through my struggles. And there are people that can give you really good advice on a case-by-case basis based on what they've been through to help you deal with and best support someone who's in that situation. Don't ever give up on them, but you might have to set up some boundaries, and that can be the best thing for them and for you.
Now, I want to remind everyone, if you're listening and would like to ask Jamie a question, you can chat it, and I'll be happy to ask her, or call 919-518-9773, or Skype Computers 2K Voice. Now, I want you to talk a little bit about, I thought this was very powerful, about taking responsibility. We talked about it briefly at the beginning. You're like, you know what, I come from a family of alcoholics, so it would have been really easy to just say, hey, it's in my genes, this is how it is. Because I think not just with alcoholism, I think with life, we create our life. And when you don't take responsibility, you have that victim energy. And as long as you don't claim that, you're going to continue to have that victim energy. And, I laugh because I'm like, I worked on clearing this and dealing with my stuff. And I'm like, how can I still have some victim energy? And I recognize that now when I'm feeling that way, and I can say, okay, step back, own it, and move forward. Talk about claiming responsibility.
Yeah, I really like that you bring up that you can get stuck in the victim energy, because I was there for a while, about 2 years. And I did have a lot of traumatic things happen that would, give anybody an excuse to drink. But, the problem is it doesn't serve anybody, and at least of all you. And so I did have to take responsibility. And if I really did want to change my life and start over and do it right, part of the process in the 12-step program is making amends. And that's a big part of owning up, taking responsibility, apologize where you need to, and where people are willing to accept your apologies, because they're not always. And all of that is a part of the process of accepting the responsibility. Like I said, I saw the line coming in my physicality, in my physiology, and I crossed it. I had this, I don't know what it was, this perpetual teenager attitude of immortality, and I can keep pushing the envelope and I can handle it and it'll never happen to me. And and even as I was descending, I just kept making excuses and justification, or just put the blinders on and ignored it, despite everything falling apart all around me. And you can get stuck in this cycle of shame and guilt, and that's where I was. That's the lowest you can be on the scale of human existence, because you just feel like you have no worth, and you just can't even present yourself in public, much less face up to what you're doing and own up to it. So that's where I was. But there gets to a point where you have to say, look, I screwed up. I've already been punished. I've been punished enough. I've been punishing myself all along and all those around me. I'm going to suck it up, and I'm going to apologize, and I'm going to own up, and I'm going to shake it off. And I think that's probably the hardest part of the process, Julie, because I'm like 12 and a half years sober now, and I'm still working on forgiving myself for things. I still have things, bubble up to the surface, with what I call them cringe moments, where I'm like, oh God, that person and this and that, and I can't believe I did that. Those memories are still popping up after all of this time. But like I said, it doesn't serve anybody. And I can't get to where I want to be with my service in the world and my ministry if I don't fully forgive myself, and move on, and allow others to forgive me too. It doesn't do anybody any good to beat yourself up.
Absolutely. And that happened in the past, and the moment and the power to change is in the present moment. So when we're in the past rehashing all of that, it doesn't allow us to move forward. But I think that's really powerful, what you just said. And I think it's important. And I think, my personal belief, and I'd love, you to share your thoughts, because in addition to alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever the drug of choice is, why do you think? I think it's because of fear and shame. I think there's a lot of abuse that happens, many things, because I think a lot of people in our society are highly addictive. Whatever their choice is, it's whatever it is, they're addicted to it. But I think for my belief is it goes back to shame, guilt, all those horrible things that you mentioned. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a combination of things, and some trauma and some abuse and some things that happened in my childhood that I never dealt with, and divorce, and I could go on and on. Everybody has these issues and these problems. But I think, we live in a really fast-paced, high anxiety society. And I think people don't have the proper coping skills. I'm glad to see the meditation movement is really expanding and growing, and yoga and physical fitness and all of that, and spirituality, because that is the best way to cope with all the anxiety that we're faced with on a day-to-day basis. And I just didn't have those skills. I was never taught them. I was just always a go, 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 go. I was ambitious. I had goals, and I was just going to go. And that's who I was. So I didn't have any coping skills except for drinking. And at the time, it was socially acceptable. You get together and you have some beers, or you go to the bar, or you go to the O Club, or on base or whatever, and you drink together, and that's how you bonded. And I just think if it becomes more and more acceptable for people to do more productive things together that are better for coping, better bonding experiences, like, go to yoga classes together, or go for runs together, meditation groups, I see more and more of that expanding, which is great, in schools and on bases and all of that. It's really great to see, because it's a much better way to learn how to cope with things.
Now, you've mentioned meditation and yoga. What other spiritual practices have you implemented that have helped you in your life?
Well, I've always been a big reader. I like information. I like learning. I like expanding and growing. So just studying, I've studied just about every religion on the planet, just out of sheer curiosity, because that's who I am. But also different modalities. There's a whole bunch of different techniques out there available. Martial arts, qigong, um, yoga. I'll try anything at least once. And if I feel any kind of relief from it, I'll do it again. But I'm just one of those people that likes to explore and try new things, and I'm open to anything. And I think that every culture has a good method of spirituality and spiritual practice, and you just need to be open to trying it out for yourself.
Now, one of the things I love that you talk about is reconnecting with our spirit. So how do we do that, and how does that help us create the life that we want?
Well, the beauty of being human is that for every human, it's different. For me personally, I'm huge on nature. Anytime I can go to a park or go on a hike or go in the lake or the ocean and swim, that for me is a very healing, grounding experience. And it's not only physically for my body, physical fitness wise, it's for me mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. So I'm really big on getting out in nature. Um, Also, like I said, when I first got sober, I went back to the church of my youth, the Christian church. Now, I still go once in a while. I've evolved beyond that traditional dogmatic approach to spirituality, but it's a good place to start. And if people feel like they need to get back to basics and they need to reconnect with spirit, they might want to try that. Go back to the childhood of their youth.
I love that you say you can come back bigger and better after losing it all. So talk a little bit more about that, because I think a lot of times people think, you know what, I can't come back bigger and stronger, and if I've just lost everything, I'm going to be happy if I can just get back to where I was.
1 second.
Sure. Let Jamie cough it out and get back to her. And so
So sorry about that.
no apologies, Jamie. Don't worry about it. We have great sound effects here at Reawaken Your Brilliance, so we enjoy it. It's all fun. So if you can talk, do you remember what the question is? How about if I repeat it? Talk about coming back bigger and better than you were. And I had mentioned a lot of people, if they lose everything, think I would just be excited to get back where I am. But you're like, no, it can be even better. So talk about this.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you're at a point where you have to start over, why not really go for it, right? So that's what I did. I went back to, okay, what have I always loved to do? What have I always dreamed to do since I was a little girl? And I'd always been a performing artist, a dancer, stage performer. And so that's that's what I did. I decided I would get back into dance and I would go to Hollywood and pursue my dreams. Now, I'm not saying that, the Hollywood dream is not for everybody, but everybody's got a big dream. So,
Absolutely.
and like I said at the beginning of the conversation, I'm hoping that you don't have to hit rock bottom to start pursuing your dreams. If you are in a place where you feel stuck and you're not fulfilled, well, there's a lot of options these days. Everybody's got something they can do. Everybody's got the big dream. And a lot of what I talk about in my book is how to make yourself your own celebrity. Now, I think in our society, we're so obsessed with pop culture and celebrity, and we love to watch them rise. We love even more to watch them fall. And I think on the one hand, it's okay to look, to look towards the to look towards them for entertainment. That's okay. But I think people are getting a little obsessive about it. It's tipping to the point to where it's unhealthy, because I think people just don't. They're living vicariously through celebrity because they don't feel like they can have that for themselves. And I'm here to tell you, you absolutely can. You can be your own celebrity. It could be as a superstar mom. It could be within your own community. With today's, with the internet, I mean, if you have a message, you can go global with it. You don't have to go through Hollywood. You don't have to go the traditional red carpet route to be a celebrity in your own life. After all, what is a celebrity but somebody whose life is to be celebrated, right?
I think that's wonderful. I think that's so inspiring, and I want to let you get a drink and cough it out because you sound like you're straining there. And so I love that you talk about that because I think it's so true. I'm sitting here in Raleigh, North Carolina. People all over the show watch the world. I don't have to answer to anyone. They can't say, oh, You know what? She just got a little woo-woo. It's a little, don't talk about consciousness, that's strange, and then cut you off. So we have complete creative control over it. And what's interesting about this process for me is I love to write. I always write, but I was a behind the kind of scenes person. And someone said to me, you need to do a show. And I was like, okay, what could I do it on? And then, like what you mentioned earlier, dropped in my head, Reawaken Your Brilliance, because Amnon's like, when are you doing a show? And I said, well, I got to think of the name. And it all flowed after that. So I think that with the internet, you can be, and again, it doesn't have to be doing something like this. I love that you could be being the best mom ever, being, the best janitor, being the best dancer in your household, whatever it is, as long as you are inspired and are joyful doing it. And as you said, celebrating your life, that's what's most important. So I'm super excited about this. And I want you to talk about how you want to change Hollywood.
Well, the old paradigms in Hollywood are all falling apart, just like they are everywhere else. It's been a very ageist community. And, now that our population is growing older and older, the arts usually represent the population. So, actresses specifically, need to be represented that are older and older. And I think it's slowly shifting, but it could be going a lot faster. I'd like to see more female leadership, and we are seeing that more and more, female directors and producers and executive producers, showrunners for television shows. The shift is happening. I just think there's got to be a way we can encourage it to happen a little bit faster.
What have you gotten any responses, negative or positive, to how you want to change things?
Well, no negative responses. I mean, everybody sees this is what needs to happen, and this is the way things are going. And you look at some of the women that are in Hollywood now, like Halle Berry and Sandra Bullock and Vanessa Williams. I mean, my God, they're 40s and 50s and 60s. Meryl Streep, Susan Sarandon. They're gorgeous. They're at the top of their game. They're not going anywhere. I mean, it's wonderful to see that, so the shift is happening. I don't get any negative responses to that. I think that people, although I haven't talked to any, white male studio heads about it, but everybody else, and that's why you see the indie film community expanding so much, because they're taking the reins. They're saying, look, you don't represent us. We're not a 13-year-old teenager that wants to watch a comic book superhero movie. We want to see substance. We want to see people of all races and ages represented, so the indie community is really taking the reins on that. And the good thing about it is you're seeing more and more indie films getting recognized, winning awards, and getting picked up at film festivals for worldwide distribution and things like that didn't used to happen before. So it is happening. It's exciting. It's an exciting time to be part of the community.
My sister-in-law, when they got pregnant with their second child, they moved back to West Virginia. They shot 2 films in West Virginia, worldwide distribution now. They had some things they had to iron out, but it showed actually in the theater here in Raleigh, and she's creative control. They're getting to do what they want. So I think you're exactly spot on about that, and that's really exciting to see.
Yeah, creative control, that's another thing, because anytime you go through the studios, it's going to get watered down. And, and they market to the teenagers and the early 20s. That's just what they do. So
I want to remind you, sorry, go ahead, finish your thought. I apologize.
Oh, well, I just wanted to go back to, because I don't want to scare people away and think that I'm just this Hollywood person, because it's not just, I think, like I said, art represents life, and Hollywood is kind of at the forefront of what's going on in our community, in our society. And I just feel like, again, you can be a celebrity wherever you are, and you don't have to make it big in the traditional sense to make a big impact. I always say that. You don't have to make it big to make a big impact. I mean, just like what you're doing here, Julie, with Reawaken Your Brilliance, and what I'm doing with, it's not a bestseller, but it's making waves around the world, and we do what we can, and we make an impact, and we do what we believe in. And I think that's what everybody should be focusing on, to make that impact from wherever you are.
I think that's so true. And I think of we are in this, MTV is not the right term, but, we're in this maybe reality TV time where, everyone thinks, oh, I've got to make a bunch of money being on a reality TV show, or just because otherwise then my life is meaningless. And I think that kind of connects into what you were talking about earlier about this obsessiveness with celebrity culture and living vicariously. And, it's like when I try not to watch the news that much, mainstream media, but I'm like, why am I hearing about Lamar Odom's drug deal? I mean, that has nothing to do with my life. That's whatever the man's going through personally. I hope he gets help, but that I don't need to know that unless it's a story like you where you're sharing with the hope of inspiring people. You know what I mean? It's like we can't get away from it.
Exactly. And this obsession with fame, again, it goes back to people just feeling that lack about their own self-worth. Everybody, one of the core desires of every human being is significance and being valued. And I think people are just, they just don't see, they just see that as winning the lottery ticket. Well, if I can just get on a reality show and get famous, then my life will be perfect, and they just don't see any other way instead of cultivating their talents and gifts, or a message they may have, or community service of some sort, getting involved with something that's meaningful to them. Instead of seeking those things out, they're trying to take the easy way out and just say, I'll just go and try to get famous just for being famous. And I just feel like that just represents a real lack in the self-confidence, in the collective self-confidence of our society.
I think that's very profound. And the one thing that I love about you, and I can't remember where I read this, I think it was since we're connected on Facebook, you talk openly about your bad or your challenging days. And I think that's so important because I think it's something we're taught, like you have to put on that happy face, everything is groovy, it doesn't matter if my life's crumbling and I'm about to have a meltdown, I'm going to act like everything's fine. And talk about that and why you do that.
Well, I've always been a very open and honest person, a very straightforward person. But I thought for the book, it was so crucial to really give it to you straight and just really be raw with it and brutally honest about how downright gory it got. I mean, it's really ugly. It gets to some really, really low places. But I just think that's another problem we have, is that we glamorize everything too much. Everything is kind of softened up. And this is a deadly disease. It kills people every day. People are dying. We see evidence of that in the Hollywood community. We're losing, several a year at least. I mean, it's a real problem. It's not glamorous at all. It's ugly and it's dirty, and it makes you. It's shameful, the things that you end up doing because your judgment is off. I mean, so I really felt like in order to have the impact that the book needed to have, I really needed to be raw with it and tell the brutal, honest truth about how bad it got. Because once you see the juxtaposition of how bad it got, you won't even recognize me. And then you look at where I'm at now. Like, well, God, that's like a quantum leap. Like, how did she go from that to this? And that's the whole point of the book. It's my story, but I also look at it as almost like a step-by-step guide on how to pick yourself back up by the bootstraps and start over, and you rebuild yourself and restructure yourself and build a new life for yourself. So it's almost like a guidebook because of the way I tell it. And when you read it, you'll understand. It's almost like a suspense thriller. You get to the end of one chapter, you're like, oh my God, where is this girl going next? How much worse can it get? But then you get to the end and you're like, wow, redemption. There is hope.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's absolutely amazing. And in the past, honestly, I would have judged you. And what changed that for me is I recognized my own stuff and dealt with my own demons, but I remember seeing intervention and it's like a light bulb clicked with me. And I'm like, oh, now I understand. I can, I see the root of it. It was seeing the person past the addiction and where it stemmed from. And that just for me made me have compassion and sympathy.
Well, I was the same way. I used to be very judgmental. I used to be a grudge holder because I thought that's what made me, that was strength. I thought that was a strength of character to be able to stay mad at someone and hold those grudges, you know?
Hmm.
And and I had this stereotype, like a lot of people still do, of the alcoholic being the homeless bum on the street drinking out of a paper bag until it happened to me. And you look around and it's moms that are drinking once their kids go to work. They don't know how to cope with raising children. I mean, it's business people, it's high-level politicians. It affects everyone. It's a soul sickness. And it's a sickness. So it's really people that, they don't need to be punished per se. They need help. They need rehab. They need support.
Um, we talked about, I'm sorry, I just wrote this because it just came. I love the term soul sickness. So, do you mean alcoholism is soul sickness, or the root of the fear and the shame being the soul sickness?
I mean, the root cause alcoholism is the symptom, and it could be anything. Plug in gambling addiction, plug in smoking, plug in drug addiction, plug in pill popping, plug in depression. It all stems from the same thing. It's a soul sickness. It's something that's missing deep down inside us that we're trying to fill. We're trying to find things to fill it and fix it and hide it and whatever, because we don't know what it is. We don't know how to fix it. We don't know where this black hole, this abyss, is sucking all our energy down into a black hole, and and it's the same root cause, I think, for everyone.
Is it a challenge for you now to be at a party? I mean, or have you completely cut that out? So if you're like in Hollywood and someone says, "Hey, Jamie, we're going to this, party for this movie premiere or whatever," is it a huge challenge for you to stay sober? I mean, do you have a game plan so that how do you handle that?
No, not anymore. I mean, like I said, I got 12 and a half years now. I nearly died from it. So for me, the choice is easy. For other people, it's not so easy. When it's not affecting you to that extreme, you can tend to be in self-denial longer, and you can justify things, and you can say, "Oh, I can still manage it." I had that inner voice and that inner talk for a couple of years. Oh, I can still figure out a way to manage it, and you try all different kinds of ways, and none of them work. But no, it's not difficult for me now. I do a lot of this to keep myself accountable as well. Um, I sponsor people if they need it. Once in a while, I'll still go to a meeting, or if somebody needs me to go to a meeting with them, I will. But a lot of this helps me just speaking out about it because, like I said, it keeps me accountable because it's out there. Look, this is my situation. So then if something happens, people will know right away and I'll be held accountable. And then also, it's my way of giving back. I think that's a big part of it is that, you talked from the very beginning about this victim mentality, and I think self-pity is also a sickness. So if you can step outside of that and really, anytime you're feeling down or depressed or you feel like things are closed in and you don't have a bigger perspective, one way to get that bigger perspective is to work with someone who has bigger problems than you, know, or volunteer or reach out and see what other people are dealing with. It really gives you a better perspective on things.
I agree with that 1,000%. What advice would you have for someone who's struggling, no matter where they are in the process with alcoholism? And what advice would you give to their family or friends who are like, we want to help, but we don't know what to do?
Well, it depends on the situation, how long it's been going on, how severe it is, all of those kind of factors. But um, group therapy works for people for a reason because of what I just mentioned about seeing how bad other people's problems are, makes you realize your own might not be so bad. But also you can give advice and help other people in their struggle. And then there's that sense of being amongst a group of people who are also all having the same kind of problems, so they're not judging you. So to have that freedom to be able to sit there and say, this is what I'm going through, and know that you're in a safe zone and you're not going to be judged. Group therapy is a really good avenue for that. So Al-Anon, like I mentioned earlier, for families, the afflicted, as we call them, the affected are the addicts and the alcoholics. The afflicted are the people, all of those around them. So Al-Anon's a great group you can get involved in. A lot of churches have their own community groups, um, and then the 12-step program, which shall remain anonymous. But that's what I used, and it worked for me. And just to get out there and to hear what everybody was going through, because I felt like such an alien too. I felt like, God, how could I let this get so bad? This is ridiculous. And then I go to these groups and I hear all these other people speak. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm not alone. You know, it does get pretty crazy out there. And to see the success stories too helps. So, and then to share your success stories helps. Share your experiences so other people can learn from them.
And know that they're not alone. I think you've mentioned that a time or two. I think that that's really important.
Yeah, because, you know, that's the worst thing is to really feel like you're just so hopeless and alone. And you know, we make a joke in the 12-step program that picking up the phone receiver is like picking up a 20-pound weight, because you feel like if you have to ask for help, you feel like a weakling, or you feel like, you know, you're a failure. And someone once told me, don't block the blessings. You know, by you reaching out to ask for help, you might just be blessing that other person. And this just happened to me this week. I had someone reach out to me. It happens every week, and it always makes me feel good, because it's like I'm so honored that you felt like you could reach out to me, and that I could maybe help you in some way just by being there. And so don't be afraid to ask for help if you feel like you're spiraling out of control, because you really could be blessing someone else with that call.
Absolutely. Now, maybe this happened more in the beginning, but because of your past and everything that happened, even everything you've accomplished right now, have people rejected you or maybe said, oh, we don't want to hire you for this film because of your past, or has that been a non-issue?
No, because it's so far removed for me. Um, I get a lot of respect, actually, because I think people are starting to recognize now what a journey sobriety and recovery is, and how much effort it does take. So I get a lot of respect, and I'm really glad about that. There have been a few people from the past who don't even want to hear it. They don't even want me to try to make amends. They're just, you know, they were done and over with me back then. And that's fine. You're going to get some people that are just, they just don't even want to open those doors again to even hear an apology. So I
Mm-hmm.
have had a few of those, but it's very far and few in between. I found for the most part, people are very forgiving. People love redemption. They love it when people, they love a good comeback. I mean, look at Hollywood, all the movies that make it big are a good comeback story.
Mm-hmm.
And I found for the most part, people are rooting for me, and I root for others. And it's a great feeling.
I love that. Now, I love this quote. I want to read this as you. Do not wait and hope to be discovered. Make yourself so you cannot be denied. I love that. And if there was a particular situation where that came from, I'd love to know. And how do we do this?
Well, this goes back to what I was talking about before with celebrity culture and making yourself your own celebrity. I really, since I had to rebuild myself from the inside out, I had to find out, where does confidence come from? Where does that secure sense of self come from? And how can I lock into that? How can live in such integrity that I can't be shaken? And that's what that's talking about. Is just really every choice you make, you know, because to stay sober, it's a daily choice. So every choice you make, every day that you live and you make choices for your day, make them in integrity with yourself and what you really want for yourself and the people around you, what you really want for your life, what you really believe to be true. And I think as long as you're doing that, then you're on the right track. And and the other thing too, it's really helped me with the Hollywood game, because there's a lot of rejection in the Hollywood business. And and you know, there's more rejection than there is acceptance. You know, you go to hundreds of auditions before you book one gig. So I think it really helped me, because I learned not to take rejection personally, because it's not me as a person. I'm perfect. I mean, not, you know what I mean? I'm not perfect, but I'm perfect the way I am in my spirit, in who I am. And So if I don't get the part, or if I get rejected by someone, it doesn't shake my soul like it used to. You know what I mean? Like, I'm secure in myself and who I am, and I love myself, and I'm. It's much easier to navigate the waters that way.
I have two thoughts on that. I don't know if you've read The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, but the second one, which I sometimes have to remind myself is, it's not about you. Don't take anything personally. And so not getting a part has zero to do with you, but it's how you react that has everything to do with you. And another thing, I used to hate change. I could not, I mean, literally, I'm kind of was like a cat, couldn't handle any change. But what I've learned is, go with the flow. And if it's meant to happen, it'll happen, and to be open to the possibilities. Like, I'm kind of, I think, going through a career transition right now. And I'm like, well, can I do this? And I'm like, yes, you can do it. Of course you can. That's, your little head saying, no, doubt, doubt, doubt. But you can. And so if it flows, just be open to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the Four Agreements. Yeah, I think, I know it sounds cliche, Julie, but it really boils down to self-love. It really does. You have to learn how to love yourself. And sometimes we have to relearn how to love ourselves, which is what happened to me. Um, but you really, when you get to that place where you have unconditional love with yourself, that's where you're unshakable. That's where the confidence comes from. That's where the success comes from. That's where following your dreams and your bliss comes from. It's that place.
You're absolutely hit the nail on the head. I agree with you beyond 1,000%. Now, a couple questions that I like to ask each guest, and the first one is, someone out there might be at rock bottom. They not might be just above rock bottom. They might be struggling, whether they're lost their job in the government, going through divorce. So, what words of wisdom would you say to someone who's in a really trying time right now?
Everything's temporary. I know it may not seem like it. We get stuck in these cycles and we feel like they're never going to end. But in the big scheme of things, it's all temporary. And the other thing to, you talked about in my book, I really believe in the power of choice. And that's you could be in any situation you're in. If you open yourself up and really look at it, you chose to be there. Now, it may be painful to hear that right now where you are, but you'll understand it later looking back. But everything is a choice. Every situation you're in, every person you're with, every place you live, everything you're doing, it's a choice, and you can change it at any moment.
Absolutely. When you accept that you've made a choice, and that removes the victim mentality.
Exactly. That's what empowers you to, okay, now let me make a new choice.
Absolutely. Now, I'm all about taking action. So you've given us a ton of great advice tonight. What one thing can people do right after the show, before they go to bed or tomorrow morning, to reawaken their brilliance?
Well, they could start by reading my book.
There you go.
That'd be a good start. Living the High Life Without Drinking the Champagne. And then just, if you haven't done it yet, just really do some soul seeking and find out what brings me joy, what makes me like a child again, what do I have fun doing. And then if you're not doing that, start. And it could be anything. It could be playing soccer again, join a community's soccer team, whatever it is, you need to have that play and that fun in your life on a regular basis. So whatever you used to have fun doing that you're not doing anymore, start doing it again. Fit it in there somewhere in your schedule.
Okay, now Jamie, tell us about how people can get your book, if you've got any upcoming speaking engagements, a movie that you're in, whatever you'd like to share with everyone.
Oh, well, they can go to my website, jamiemccall.com. And from there, I keep it updated as to what's going on. They can get to my book from there. It's on Amazon. And I'm still doing the acting thing and in talks for a few things that are going on right now. Just taped a speaking, another interview type gig with the Inspiration Show from the Mind Movies channel. So that'll be up soon. And I'm just continuing this trek of reaching out and trying to reach people through the interview circuit and with my performing art. And I'm starting my next book, and it's fiction. It's a paranormal romance called Quantum Lover and Angelic Affair. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I want to email. Put me on whatever notice. I want to read that.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's going to be a doozy. It's very provocative, but then that's what I do.
That's a good thing. Well, first of all, I want to because this people when they listen to this, they will not see the chat room, and it's Jamie JAMIE McCall.com. So I want to make sure you spell her name right so that they can find you because I goofed on that in a couple places. So JAMIE McCall.com, and you can find her book there. And I have to tell you, Jamie, this has been refreshing because after living in Los Angeles for 10 years, I met quite a few actresses, and let's just say you're a different breed, and I prefer the Jamie McCall breed of actresses. So keep up the good work and with everything you're doing, and we appreciate you sharing your story, and I know you'll continue to inspire others and help change lives.
Thank you so much, Julie. It's been an honor.
All right, everyone, we appreciate you tuning in. Our next online workshop is going to be on conscious parenting. So if you're a parent and looking to raise your kids in a different way, we've got an outstanding panel coming up. You can find out more information at reawakenyourbrilliance.com. Now, I am going on my honeymoon tomorrow, but I have you all covered. We recorded an interview, and we've got a great interview with Magenta Pixie from England, and she was really at the forefront of the consciousness movement. So I'm going to encourage you to check out that interview next week. All right, everyone, we will plan on seeing you in a couple weeks. All right, so get out there and reawaken your brilliance. All right, bye now.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays, 9 a.m. till noon. Carrie's Psychic Cafe with Carrie Silkowski, Sundays, 8 till 9 p.m. Health In with Debbie Bruck, Mondays, 11 a.m. till noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays, 1 till 2 p.m. Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, the second and fourth Wednesday of each month from 7:30 till 8:30 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays, 9 till 10 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.